It has a nickname. The Park Service uses it, the guides use it, the official NPS website uses it. The Autobahn, a 45-degree slope of ice and snow between High Camp and Denali Pass on Mount McKinley. And according to NPS, it has been the site of more fatalities than any other section of the most popular climbing route up North America's tallest mountain. Last Wednesday, just before midnight, rangers at the 17,000-foot camp got a report. 4 climbers had fallen near Denali Pass, part of a 7-person Latvian expedition, 15 days into a 4-week trip. 3 were dead. The 4th was rescued the next day in critical condition. That's the headline that ran on Friday. And here's what almost every version of that headline leaves out. This slope has a nickname for a reason.
Yeah, the Autobahn. I knew the name. I didn't know it was the deadliest section of the route. That's grim.
Welcome to What News, the channel that reads past the headline. I'm Sarah, this is Mike. Today, the slope on Denali, whose nickname is also its warning.
That nickname's been bugging me since you said it. The Autobahn? Like the German highway?
Yeah, the Autobahn. We'll come back to why. But 3 Latvian climbers died on Mount McKinley this week. That part you've probably already seen. What's interesting is where exactly they fell, because the spot isn't a surprise. The climbing community has known it by name for decades.
Okay, so, wait. You said the spot has a name, so this isn't a random patch of ice. This is like a known thing. Why doesn't it have a barrier, or a closure, or something?
And that is the question the headlines don't ask. The framing you're seeing right now? Treacherous mountain claims 3 lives. Reuters ran that. AP ran that. CNN ran that. And it's not wrong. About 1,000 to 1,200 people try Denali every year. Less than half summit. Over 130 have died on it since the park started keeping count. So yes, the mountain is dangerous. But the deaths cluster. They cluster on the West Buttress route. They cluster on falls. Not on avalanches, not on altitude. And they cluster on one slope. Right?
Hold on. One slope?
One slope. And we'll get to it. But before we turn 3 deaths into a tidy thesis, let's at least name the people and what happened that night. Because the analysis doesn't get to skip that part.
Yeah, 3 names. Inese Pučeka, Vija Olte, Renārs Kunigs-Salaks. The Latvian Mountaineering Association called them, quote, talented and experienced climbers. The team started the climb on May 14th. They fell on May 28th. The 4th climber, Mārtiņš Bilzēns, was evacuated in critical condition the next day. Recovery efforts for the 3 who died are still going on as we record this. 2 of the survivors got frostbite getting back to camp. So, whatever frame we land on next, that's what's underneath it.
Right. And the frame matters. Because the mainstream version, tragic accident on a treacherous mountain, buries the structural part. Look, NPS has been explicit about this slope for years. There's a study from 2008, McIntosh and others, that reviewed every Denali death from 1903 to 2006. 96 fatalities. 51% on the West Buttress route. 45% from falls. And on the Autobahn specifically, NPS says it outright on its own website. The deadliest section of that route. And the warning's explicit. Conditions can swing from deep avalanche risk snow to hard ice, and climbers should expect to set their own protection where needed. That's the operational warning, before anybody steps on the slope.
Yeah, look, you're making NPS sound like the bad guy here. Or the route. These were experienced climbers on a mountain that doesn't owe anybody anything. Every alpinist on Denali knows the deal. The mountain doesn't get safer because we're upset that people died on it. I'm not saying there's no story. I'm saying be careful about turning an accident into a structural failure 5 days in.
I hear you. I'm not blaming the dead. We don't know what happened on that rope team yet, or if they were even roped at all. The point isn't that they screwed up. The point is the industry has known about this failure mode for decades, and the framing every time is still tragic accident. That's the structural critique, not them, the framing.
Okay, fine, the framing. But here's what I keep getting stuck on. The cluster you described, that's a descent pattern, right? 61% of Denali deaths happen on descent. That same McIntosh study, I think. Tired climbers, bad calls at altitude. So if the Autobahn kills people coming down, what's the institutional answer? Close the mountain? Mandatory guides? What's the lever you actually want pulled?
Wait, actually, hold on. The Latvian team, they didn't fall on descent.
What?
18,000 feet, going up, mid-Autobahn, on the ascent. The Park Service report has them traversing toward Denali Pass when it happened. So your tired climbers coming down framework doesn't fit this one. Tracking?
Huh. Okay, that's a real point. The ascent piece. I was running on the descent assumption. Almost everybody fits the descent pattern. So the part I wasn't waiting is that this one breaks the pattern in a specific way. Yeah, that changes how I read it.
And here's where the implications get uncomfortable. If the Autobahn kills somebody from a different country every couple of years, and NPS already knows it, then the industry's current model is put pickets in, write the warning, trust experienced adults, made an informed choice. Fine. But the same model produces the same outcome every few years. So at some point, that becomes a policy choice the institution is making by default.
Yeah, and I'm going to push hard here. I know a guy who guided Denali a couple of seasons. Won't name him. He told me the Autobahn's the part of the route you don't sleep well before. Everybody who's been up there says some version of that. So this is not hidden danger. The people on that slope this week knew exactly what slope they were on. And the answer to, we keep losing climbers on the Autobahn, is what? Fixed lines? Permits? Closure? The second you do any of that, you're saying the answer to Denali is manage it more. And that breaks what alpinism actually is.
And I take that. The autonomy argument is real. If you regulate Denali into a managed experience, you've killed what makes it Denali. I'm not going to pretend I have a clean answer. What I won't accept is the part where we pretend the outcome is a surprise. NPS publishes the warning. The guides have the nickname. The pattern is decades old. Nobody who falls on the Autobahn is the first one. They're somewhere on a list. And the list keeps growing because
nobody wants to be the one to close the mountain.
Right. Because the trade-off's been priced in for decades. That's the part the headlines won't say.
Yeah, and I'm still not totally comfortable calling it predictable in any operational sense. Predictable in aggregate isn't predictable in the individual. 3 names this week. Different team next year. The mountain doesn't write a schedule. But I'll grant you the framing point. Tragic accident is a lazy headline for something this regular on this specific slope. So we end somewhere in the middle, which is honestly where these usually end.
Yeah, the middle. Honestly, the most honest place to land on this. Look, the Autobahn isn't a freak. It's an inheritance. Climbers inherit the route, the nickname, the warning page, the list. And whether you frame this as a personal tragedy or a structural pattern, the next group on that slope inherits the same thing. The nickname doesn't change. The slope doesn't change. The list doesn't get shorter. And the part we'd actually want to know? What happened in the last 45 seconds on the Autobahn for those 4 climbers Wednesday night? That part nobody will ever fully report. Which is kind of the whole thing, isn't it? That's where these stories end. That's why we read past the headline.
Yeah. We'll be watching this one, especially if NPS releases anything else.
That's what news. If this was useful, send it to somebody still on the headline version. We'll see you in the next one.